So this is an article in Variety, and this made multiple headlines yesterday. Saw a number of different people talking about some specific things that Bob Iger said. Of course, for us, the most interesting part is how this relates to Marvel. So we'll go through this article, but I really want to sort of focus on what he ends up saying here about Marvel and also Disney itself, right? Super interesting. Disney's had maybe one of the worst years of a studio ever last year. Absolutely horrible. They're at arguably a really weird point, but there has been a lot of sort of discussions behind the scene as far as shifting, getting back to the core pillars of what Disney is about. And the stock price ever since the last investors call has held pretty strong at like 16 to 17% above what it was before, with a lot of people feeling positive about the direction that Disney is taking. Okay, so let's with all of that in mind, let's talk about this. Disney working to get streaming platforms on technical par with Netflix. Iger says we need to be at their level. CEO says Nelson Peltz activist investor proxy fight designed to distract us. Reveals studio has killed a few movie projects. That's really interesting. We're going to focus on that too and try to figure out what movie projects they killed. Okay, Disney CEO Bob Iger acknowledged that the company is behind Netflix in terms of technical capabilities and that the Mouse House is in the process of catching up. We need to be at their level in terms of technology capability, Iger said about Netflix, speaking Tuesday at the 2024 Morgan Stanley Technology Media Telecom Conference. When we launched Disney Plus in 2019, our goal was to have basically robust video experiences at scale, Iger said. What we didn't have was the technology that we needed to basically lower customer acquisition and retention costs, to increase engagement, to essentially grow our margins by reducing marketing expenses. Iger continued, we were now in the process of creating and developing all of that technology. And obviously the gold standard here is Netflix. That is true. I've said this for years. Netflix is low-key a tech company, not a media company. And their algorithm is actually one of the things that separated them from the competition and made them essentially the Coke of streaming. Okay, but let's read on here and let's figure out what he is saying. He said Netflix technology prowess is one of the reasons its margins are so much higher than Disney's, and that Disney's streaming churn rates are higher than they need to be. 100%. Iger reiterated that Disney is on track to achieve profitability in the streaming business, which includes Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus by the fiscal quarter that ends September 2024. But he said it's not just about profitability. It's about turning streaming into a real growth engine for the company. That's really interesting. So just random question for the chat. I'd love to know. When I sit down to watch something, right, at the end of the day, when Elisa and I were looking for something to watch, I will go to Netflix to see what's on Netflix. I will go to Prime and I'll see what's on Prime, what's free on Prime, what is now available to rent on Prime. I'll even go to HBO Max, or I guess just Max, right? But I never, ever, ever go to Disney Plus to see what is on Disney Plus. Are you similar or are you different? And do you understand where I'm going with this, right? Because that's the discussion of the technology. The ideas that are ingrained in the end user, the consumer, and how they treat the different platforms and how they look at them as far as, is this a platform that I'm going to go to see what is on here, to see what is available or not, right? So that's part of the problem. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about here. The fact is, you go to Disney Plus when you know exactly what you're going for. Mainly Bluey or something Marvel, something Star Wars, the new Marvel or Star Wars show. You go to Disney Plus. But what that means is that there's not a lot of time spent on the app gauging what new content is released there and seeing what the algorithm is going to show you as far as what you might enjoy. That's like the technological aspect that Disney lacks with Disney Plus. Of course, there's quality issues as well. We've had really ass shows for a couple of different years, and they needed to fix that as well. But I think when he's talking about technology, that's one of the things that he's talking about. Hulu, interestingly enough, is a platform that I do have that kind of action with, right? So when I go and I'm looking at all the different services to see what I want to watch, I will check out Hulu. And it's different because Hulu will populate new stuff that's coming on there, stuff that I'll like, movies. It has like a rotation, right? So he goes on to sort of talk about this. Long term, Hulu fits very well into Disney's streaming plans, Iger commented. Even though we may not turn it into a global brand outside of the US, the company distributes Hulu content under the Star brand. Hulu has built a good brand with great content, Iger said, calling out FX's The Bear and Shogun. Shogun is fantastic, dude. I am literally on Hulu more than Disney Plus right now, mostly because of anime and Shogun. Disney is in the midst of finalizing its buyout of NBC Universal's 33% stake in Hulu. In November, Disney paid $8.61 billion to Comcast with a final price tag, which could be higher to be based on an assessment of Hulu's market value by each party's bankers, investment bankers, calculating, counting the beans. Iger also touched on the joint venture Disney, Fox Corp, and Warner Bros. Discovery announced last month to create a streaming platform pooling ESPN and the company's linear TV networks that carry sports programming, with the Disney CEO characterizing the sports bundle as pro-consumer. You've got a lot of young people who have not subscribed to the multi-channel fat bundle, and you've got a lot of people that used to be subscribers that lapsed, Iger said. We want them in. We're trying to provide them a less expensive, more focused opportunity. The as yet unnamed joint venture is aimed to launch in the fall of 2024. Pricing has not been announced. The JV plans to sell the sports package directly to consumers in U.S. and add on services like Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max. Our plan is to continue to take advantage of linear TV in terms of revenue and profit that it generates, but at the same time, making the transition to a fully streaming world, Iger said. Users of the ESPN flagship standalone app, aimed for fall 2025 launch, may be able to upgrade to the JV Sports Bundle, Iger said. Ultimately, way down the road, ESPN will be fully digital platform, he said, integrating features like sports betting. Yeah, so that's another thing that I really think Disney has that's strong, is the integration of sports betting. And the future of what this will look like will be being able to bet right there as you're watching and have it like kind of pop up, right? So I think that that is actually like a very interesting avenue for them to go, and it could create a ton of revenue. Remember, ESPN and Disney itself are now actually getting in to gambling. This is part of the reason that Dave Portnoy was able to buy Barstool Sports back for $1, with the caveat that if he ever sold, he does actually have to pay 50% of whatever he sells it to ESPN. But that's kind of what that deal, that's why that deal happened, because the regulators surrounding the gambling and all that sort of stuff, they just didn't like Portnoy. They didn't like Barstool. They thought it was too risky for their brands. And because it's so litigious, that's kind of why that happened. But that's also like a huge thing for Disney to have. So I think by creating this bundle with the sports and being able to target users you already have via Hulu or Disney Plus or the bundle, really smart, and then putting in your own betting into that and making that as easy as possible. I mean, that's like money, you know what I mean? So very interesting. A front burner issue for Iger is the proxy battle being waged by two activist investors, Nelson Peltz, Tryon Partners, and Blackwell's Capital, who are seeking to displace some of Disney's board members with their own candidates. Disney is urging investors to vote for its own slate of 12 nominees at the April 3rd shareholders meeting, which will take place online. Asked about Peltz's agitation, Iger responded, "This campaign is designed to distract us. I am working really hard to not let this distract me, because when I get distracted, everybody who works for me gets distracted, and that's not a good thing." Iger said that the discussion surrounding the activist investors demonstrates that this is a very complex company to run, encompassing cruise ships and streaming and movies and TV. Disney's different operations, he said, require a significant amount of time and focus. We're at this hard every day. That's kind of interesting. Look, I know some of you guys out there are like, let's go, Nelson Peltz, and you really want that to happen. Honestly, I don't really care. I don't have a dog in the fight. I just want Marvel content to be better. I want Star Wars content to be better. I think that can happen under Iger. I think that could happen with Peltz and them involved. I think it could happen if Apple bought them and fired everybody. I really don't care about these people or this kind of a fight, right? Iger has commented before, said that when he returned as CEO in November 2022, following the ouster of Bob Chapek, I came back and discovered right away that it was a company in need of fixing. According to Iger, under Disney's previous leadership, creativity wasn't really at the center. Most importantly, there wasn't enough accountability, specifically among creative executives. Now, that I agree with. Like, definitely. They need fixing, and you need accountability, okay? And have we seen accountability? I don't know. Iger said Disney's studio group has killed a few projects already that we just didn't feel were strong enough, but the company has not been public about it. He didn't identify the axed films. He noted that Disney was #1 studio at the box office for 7 of the last 8 years, with the exception of 2023. That's fair. But also, 2023 was real bad. When the Mouse House was topped by Universal, Iger gave props to Universal's Oppenheimer blockbuster, calling it a fantastic film. To date, he said, Marvel has released 33 films, totaling nearly $30 billion in box office receipts. That is not an accident, he said. Yeah, I mean, come on, man. That's obviously not an accident. We have to return to something like that, saying the company needs to cultivate a culture of excellence and respect with the creative community. Hell yes. I've spent a tremendous amount of time on the studio, and I feel very excited about the slate, Iger said. He reeled off Disney's upcoming movies this year: Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, sequel to Pixar's Inside Out, Deadpool and Wolverine, which I think will be one of the most successful Marvel films we've had in a long time, and I agree with that. Moana 2, which was originally imagined as a TV series, Lion King prequel, Mufasa, sorry. Iger discussing Disney's $1.5 billion investment into Epic Games, and I'm quite interested in this. He said it was motivated to do that agreement after seeing stunning data on how much time Gen V spends playing games. Within a few years, Epic will launch a Disney universe that will let users engage with Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, and Disney intellectual property, as well as watch short-form content and purchase merch. He said, you need a foot in the future, and I agree with that. Iger's appearance at the conference came after Peltz Try on Monday released a lengthy white paper detailing strategic changes the hedge fund argues will improve Disney's financial performance and boost its stock price. Among its suggestions, Disney should revamp its streaming content strategy to make more shots on goal, consolidate Disney Plus and Hulu. Tryon also wants Disney board to fix the company's chronic succession problems for the 73-year-old Iger. I mean, there's some truth in there. They have some points in there. Okay, so specifically to Marvel, and I guess we should now talk about canceled projects, right? But I love this idea of a commitment to excellence, right? Creativity wasn't really at the center. Most importantly, there wasn't enough accountability. We have to return to something like that. Speaking specifically of Marvel, $30 billion in revenue. That's ridiculous. This is not by accident. We have to return to something like that, saying the company needs to cultivate a culture of excellence and respect with the creative community. And I think that is absolutely true. And of course, he touts Deadpool and Wolverine as sort of the beginning of that, as sort of the start of that. And I think, frankly, he couldn't be more right about that and on point. Now, at some level, like, is he just saying we need to make good movies and good movies are what make movie success? Kids love video games. Like, yeah, at some level, it's like grandpa finally, came out of the office and he's looking around and he's realizing what the hell is happening. It also kind of low-key confirms that they've made some bad movies and some bad shit. And I think that is also something that the audience understands and appreciates hearing at some level. Disney is really not one to hold any L's or admit that they're wrong. I guess Iger gets to technically put all of that on Bob Chapek, even though Disney Plus itself and the mandates for that kind of content were Bob Iger's idea and not Chapek's idea, right? But, he kind of gets to throw it all on Chapek. Don't worry about Bob Chapek. He got a huge package to walk away and be a good little boy and shut his mouth forever. So I wouldn't really worry about him. But essentially, you get a little bit of an admittance that things were wrong and the idea that they should turn this stuff around creatively. And I personally love the idea of them canceling projects. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, it's really interesting that it just feels like, I mean, Iger's doing what he's supposed to. He's signaling to investors and to Wall Street continuously that they are committed to that. And Marvel itself, I mean, $30 billion in revenue just in the box office. It's pretty obvious how important that is to Disney, and fixing Marvel is like top priority. He spoke about how that is the studio he spent the most time with as far as trying to fix things and adjust things, and the whole like delaying of all of these films. It sounds good to me. I think Deadpool and Wolverine, they're going to do a little bit of reshooting soon, and then that should be ready to go. It's going to blow us all away. Captain America 4, I'm encouraged by some of the things I'm hearing about it. Thunderbolts is kind of a question mark. It is a question fart, but it's also a question mark for me. I think they should probably just cancel that movie. I'm going to be honest with you. But really dope stuff being rumored about, like Spider-Man 4, Doc Strange 3, Secret Wars itself. So as we talked about on Monday with Toby, with RDJ, and with Hugh Jackman, I mean, the table is sort of set for them to make a huge comeback to make this stuff be really, really awesome. So